Hey, good evening to my newbie group um, for D&D. So, I wanted to give you some homework as well as a part two to the video I made on explaining some D&D. So, the first thing I want to do is tell everyone in the group to level up to level 2. Um, this adventure is pretty small. I want to try and get all of you to get to level 3 by the end of it, and that will give you some experience. And level 3, as you'll see when you get there, um, is kind of a watershed moment for a lot of classes. We'll get to that when we get there. But want you to level up to level 2, right? So right now I'm looking at Asta, that is the cleric of the group. So we want to level her up to level 2. So what are you going to do? Um, what you're going to do is you're going to click on this little the builder character sheet here. Go to builder. Ta-da! And what you want to do is go here, click on level 2, and then the character will be level 2. It should automatically up her hit points. So what you want to do is you do that. Then what I would do is go off of this page. Don't hit the back button. Sometimes with D&D Beyond, when you hit the back button, it will undo what you just did to your character sheet. So you might want to watch out for that. So just go here, go to level 2, pick that, and then just go to some other part of the web page or whatever, right? Now, when you go to level 2, you will have other stuff appear down here. Like right now, this is what you get for level 1, and I kind of made those choices for you, right? Once you get to level 2, some of these things at higher levels will be available to you. So the cleric is going to get channel divinity and also channel divinity preserve life. The right? And you can read what they do, right? It will tell you you can go do stuff. In this case, the cleric can turn undead, right? And there's also something here about healing the badly injured, blah, blah, blah. And it will tell you what other abilities your character got. Sometimes, depending on which character you are, you may have a choice to make. In this case, the cleric will just get things, right? But if I come over here, let me go to Lyra here and go to her build. You will see she is going to get an ability called Arcane Tradition. And basically, she has to choose which school of magic she wants to be part of, right? So she'll have to take a look at these different choices and pick one, right? And you can go through them in the player's handbook, right? Like if you want to read about any questions you might have, best thing to do is to go to your sources, either go to your player's handbook or just simply go to game rules and go in this case to wizard to see what the wizard does, right? And you'll see school, 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 school. You could go here and see what sounds sexy to you, right? So if I go to the first one, right, you can see this emphasizes blocks, banishes, and protects, blah, blah, blah. This one, conjure things out of thin air. This one, blah, 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 right? And you have to go through it. For people who have spells, you will get a chance to pick another spell. So the cleric will get an additional spell that she will need to pick. The wizard will get an additional spell that she will pick as well. And if I remember correctly, if I go to the ranger starts getting spells at second level. So the ranger will have a couple of spells to pick as well, right? And it will try and walk you through that, or I am more than happy to help any of you try to figure out your spells, see what's good, see what's not good. If we have to, we could use the beginning of Friday to discuss some of these things and make sure that you have an idea of what you're looking at, right? Cool. So that's your homework to try and see if you can take a look at your character sheet when you get time. Like I said, if worse comes to worse, we'll spend some time on Friday doing it. But I also wanted to make a part 2B. I guess that was 2A. This will be 2B for this recording as well, right? So I explained that. Let's go. Let's pick on the Ranger this time. Okay. So when you played last week, right? You were mainly doing nice, simple things, and what you were doing last week is a lot of what you do, right? Um, each round, you generally get a couple of actions just to review, right? You get your, I guess we'll call it your normal action, right? That you can do something with. You have your movement that you can do something with. You may get a bonus action if you have an ability that uses that. And you could get a reaction as well, right? Now, we didn't get too deep down the rabbit hole with this, but I'm going to focus on this for the rest of this video. So let's take a look at what you can do. So, you get an action for movement. You get that every turn. You understand that. In this case, the ranger can move 30 feet on her turn. And she can either move 30 feet and then do her normal action. She can do her normal action and then move 30 feet. Or she can break it up, right? 10 feet, 7.5 feet, I don't care, right? Do 7.5 feet, do something, and then move the balance of that action, of your movement, right? So what else can you do? That's the big thing, right? So they break it down for you here, right across the top of all the things you can do. So we'll just take them all and put it in one big thing. Okay, but let's go one at a time and do it that way, right? So again, all is just showing all these bits all in one big drop down. But let's do it one at a time. So what can you do with your one normal action, right? Well, you can attack, and you did a lot of this, right? These are the attacks that this person has. They have a great sword, they have a hand axe, they have a longbow, and they have an unarmed strike. Okay, cool. You understand how that works. You did it last week. You spin a 20-sided. You add the bonus to hit. And if you do hit, you do the damage that it does. Piece of cake. So that's your attack action. Well, that's if you attack with your action, right? So what else can you do with your action? This is everything you can do with an action, right? With your normal action. You can attack, which we just talked about, right? And they put that right there, right? And that just focuses on that and repeats it. No problem. You can see that the ranger gets one attack per action. Attacks per action, one. Later on, and this character probably won't get that high enough level to get this, but at higher levels, sometimes you get two attacks or more in an action, depending on what kind of character you have and what level they are. But for this character, they get one attack per action. No problem. But down here, you see other things that you can do with your action, which we really didn't talk about last week. So why don't we do that now? So what can you do with your action? Well, we said you could attack. We just talked about that. Cast a spell. Yep, you get that. You did that last week too, those of you who are spellcasters. You can look over your spellcasting list, see the ones that are useful for an action, and go do it. All right. Or you can dash. This is something else you can do. So, what dash means is that instead of doing whatever you were going to do, usually attack, right? You can move again. So, normally you get one movement action for free each round, but you can use your normal action to run further, which means you could move 60 feet in this case, your normal 30 feet, and then use your action to move an additional 30 feet. So if you're not going to do anything else, this character could move 60 feet around. You can disengage and just hold that. Well, I will talk about that briefly. What does disengage do? Okay, here's the idea. Let's say the ranger here is attacking some evil bad guy, right? Um, and like a ranger, well, not necessarily, but it's in hand-to-hand combat, right? Both people are within 5 feet of each other, and they're using swords to attack each other. Probably what you usually do if you're that close, right? If I'm attacking a creature like that, I'm within 5 feet, and then I decide, oh shit, I want to run. You can do that on your turn. If you run away when you're within 5 feet of a creature who you're engaged with, that creature would normally get what is called a opportunity attack. What does that mean? Basically, that means I'm right next to someone, I decide to run, he gets a free attack at me, a free swipe, and he actually gets it as a reaction, which you'll see in your reaction section when we get there, right? So yeah, that's the deal. So how can you do this and not, how could you run away and not get an extra attack by the monster outside of his turn as that reaction? A free swipe at me. You do the disengage. So you disengage and then you can run your 30 feet, and the monster who you're attacking hand to hand does not get a free attack. Okay, cool. Would I possibly not want to do that? Sure. Because if you use your action to disengage, you can only run 30 feet from the creature. If you decide to do an oh shit and run your 30 feet and use your dash action that we just talked about to run the additional 30 feet, then yes, you ran away 60 feet, which is double what you normally do, but at the expense of having that extra attack against you. Of course, that extra attack has to hit you, and it may not, right? But that's the play you get there. You can disengage and move away, no free attack, or you can move away, get the free attack, and then you can do what your normal action is. Okay, great. What else is there? You could dodge. So what that means is you're dodging, right? Doing your thing. And that means that when someone attacks you for the to your next move, the attacker would have disadvantage attacking you. And what that means, whenever you hear the word disadvantage, it means the creature rolls two 20-sided dice to hit you, and it has to use the lower number of the two 20-sided rolls. So if he spins a 19 and a 7, he spun a 7 to hit you. There you go. By the way, and you'll hear this again, that's disadvantage. If you have something attacking at advantage, then they roll two 20-sideds and you keep the better one. Just FYI. So that's dodge. You could grapple, which basically means you kind of wrestle with the creature. So what that means is you do a strength check against them. They do like a dexterity or strength check back. Whoever has the higher number kind of wins, and it means that you've grappled the character. So as you can read here, if you've grappled a character, you can move. When you move, you can drag or carry the grappled creature with you. Your speed is halved, blah, blah, blah. That's what that basically means. So if you want to try and grab a creature and physically move them, that's the rule to do it. You could help someone. So let's say somebody is trying to do trying to do an ability check, or they're trying to do an attack on a creature. For your role could help them, which means they get advantage on their spin. So, like, I'm going to hit you with my sword, and over here, some person is dancing around saying, "Hey, look at me, look at me." I don't know. Whatever. That person doing the attacking because this person helped in distracting the creature, the person attacking would get advantage in the attack. Or let's say you had a jump. I don't know. You had to do you have to do a check. Let's say you had to do a acrobatics check. The person could help you with your acrobatics. It is what it is, right? So again, if you had to do that, maybe they say, "Hey, they hoist you up on something, or they make sure you don't fall." I don't know. I'm just making stuff up. But the bottom line is they help you. You get advantage on the roll. You can do that. You could hide, in which case you have to make a stealth check, right? A dexterity stealth check, and then you can hide, right? And then that means that the creature might not be seeing you, blah, blah, blah. There's certain rules for that. Actually, the ranger's pretty good. She's actually has proficiency at stealth, so she actually gets a +5 on her stealth rolls. So she could hide. You can improvise, which is basically means you can make shit up, and I'll tell you what to roll. Okay. You can ready an action. So this is a good one to go over. What does that mean? So on your turn, let's make a hypothetical situation. You round the corner and you see a goblin. Okay. Maybe you're not exactly sure if you want to attack the goblin. Maybe the goblin is maybe the goblin would wish to discuss things with you. Maybe he's there to, I don't know, have a conversation about the meaning of life. Or maybe he's there to kill you. I don't know. But you spun initiative, so you have combat kind of starting, and you decide, and you get to go first, right? You got the highest number, you got to go first. So you're not sure what to do. Do I attack him? Do I not attack him? I don't know. So what you could do is you can ready an action. So you could say, but you have to give like a trigger that basically says, if person A does this, or if this happens, then I do this. So, like, you could say, you round the corner, you see a goblin, and you can say, okay, I ready my bow and arrow, and if he goes for a sword, I shoot my bow. Next person's turn. So, if the goblin touches his sword, immediately it skips back to you, you shoot your arrow, and hopefully you do whatever you do to him. Right? So, that gives you an ability to kind of, you know, hold back and see what happens at the encounter and not just immediately try to kill it and piss it off. By the way, you can ready a spell, but if you ready a spell, that spell slot is used whether or not you use the spell. So if someone says, I ready magic missile to fire at the thing as soon as it touches its sword, If it never touches its sword, then you decide not to shoot it, right? Oh, you would lose that spell. Like that magical energy would be spent for the day, and it would be like you cast it even if you didn't. Because maybe the goblin wanted to play a game of chess instead. It wasn't there to fight. I don't know, right? But you can do it with spells. But if you ready it and the trigger doesn't happen, the spell is lost. You can search for things. That's pretty obvious, right? You search, you spend stuff, you see if you find it. You could shove something. So when you shove something, you do a strength check versus their ability, blah blah blah. But basically that means you can knock it over or push it away from you. If you knock it over and the creature falls to the ground, what does that mean? It means on the creature's turn, he can use his turn to stand up and then he can only move half distance. Okay. It also means that if he's on the ground and you're attacking him hand to hand combat, you would have advantage on the attack or you know, but if you're shooting at a distance at him with say a bow and arrow, you have disadvantage on that attack. So basically it's a way of knocking people over and then, you know, that might limit their ability a little bit. Or you can use an object, which basically means you're using an object and, you know, it may or may not use the entire action depending on my discretion. Okay. So there's a whole list of things that you can do besides knock something on the head. How often do you use them? To be honest, not all that often. They do come up sometimes. I would say from time to time, they all come up to a degree. There's always a time when someone might want to run double speed and forget his and not use his attack. There are times where, oh, I'm low on hit points and I might want to disengage and get the hell away and not give a creature a free attack. Or you might say, screw it, I have a high armor class, he ain't going to hit me anyway, probably. That's fine. Dodge, I can honestly say I hardly ever see dodge used, but you can dodge around and have disadvantage on attacks for you. I would say it's a pretty rare time. Usually people find something else to do than just dodge. Grapple, again, hardly ever used. Sometimes you might want to see a creature, you might want to wrestle it and control it to the ground or something like that. And that gives you a kind of a way of doing it. But again, I think that's fairly rare. Sometimes it happens though. Help happens quite a bit. So if someone's trying to make an ability check, sometimes if there's not combat going on, even though you could use it at combat, sometimes someone might say, "Yeah, that person is trying to persuade someone, let's say a persuasion check, to help us. I will help them, and between the two of us, we'll figure it out." And it would mean you get, advantage on the roll to in this case do persuasion, right? So help happens from time to time. Hide also tends to happen from time to time. Usually thieves do a lot of hiding to try and sneak attack and do stuff like that. But anyone could hide for something. It happens. So, but not the most common thing, but it can happen. Improvise, that's just make shit up. That can always happen. Ready in action is something that can happen as well, right? You're not quite sure if the thing is friend or foe. So you're going to, on your action, if you get to go first, you'll kind of punt and ready something. And then if you think the creature does something hostile or whatever what your trigger was, then you go and you do your thing. So it's kind of a way of punting your turn. That happens sometimes as well. They all happen sometimes. Search, yeah, people search things. Shove, I can't say shove happens that often, but you never know. It could happen. Use an object, sure, use an object. Unarmed strike, you can see down here is another action. Unarmed strike, yeah, sure, whatever. Sometimes you have no weapons, you can smack them. I don't know. Your bonus action, you could have a bonus action. Everybody in this case has two-weapon fighting, so you could fight with two weapons. It does mean that if you're fighting with two weapons, you can't be using your shield if you have a shield, which means your armor class would go down. It also means that unless you have two-weapon fighting proficiency, if you hit with your second weapon, your offhand weapon, then you would not get damage bonuses, but you could fight two-handed normally. Most people don't, but it is a possibility. Reaction, opportunity attack. We talked about this, right? If somebody moves away from you when they're in close combat, you can take a reaction to that and smack them, right? Other, work with an object, sure. Let's just take a look at another character sheet just to show someone who might have some of these abilities. The spellcasters are more likely to, come on, honey, to have some of these. Let me grab Lyra here. And let's look at some of those categories again. Let's look at, and you can see action, same shit that you had before, right? You have your attack actions, you have your other things, what I just listed off, and you got the unarmed strike. Bonus action. She doesn't have a bonus action. Fine, be that way. Reaction. So here you can see for the spellcaster, she does have a reaction. She can actually cast a spell as a reaction. She can cast shield. So what does that do? So if she casts shield on herself as a reaction, what it basically does is you can the magic user and the wizard can get a +5 bonus to their armor class on the attack that went after you. So in this case, the wizard has an armor class of 12, pretty low. Somebody, a hobgoblin, comes up, tries to hit her. It spins a 14, it hits. The wizard can react with this spell, and it almost hits him, and he goes, whoop, puts up a shield spell. It adds 5 to the armor class of your character until the start of your next turn. So it's very temporary, right? It only lasts until your start of your turn. But it raises your armor class 5. So instead of a 12, you would now have a 17, which means the dude spin a 14, he missed. So it's a way for the wizard to temporarily raise his armor class and turn a hit into a miss if the spin is low enough. It also protects you from magic missile. Let me look at some of the other characters real quick. Let's look at the thief. Thieves always have a bunch of actions and reactions and bonuses. They're very actiony. But he's a low-level thief, so he's probably not there yet, but he will over the next couple levels. So he has nothing there for his bonus action, nothing there for his reaction. Wait, you'll get more in the coming days. Let me look at the last character. I didn't look at the cleric. So the cleric does have bonus actions. So normally you just get 2-weapon fighting. The cleric can cast spells as a bonus action. The wizard didn't have that. The wizard spell was a reaction. In this case, the cleric does not have any reaction spells. So again, the reaction spell means something happens to you and you can quickly cast a spell or quickly do something as a reaction to what happened to you, right? The cleric doesn't have that. He has, or in this case, she has some bonus actions. So they can take their normal action, their movement, and they could do one of these two things as a bonus action. What can they do? They can do Shield of Faith, which they can cast that spell, and they would get 2 added to their armor class. But again, so it's like the shield spell for the wizard, but the wizard only has to cast it when he needs it or she needs it, right? It doesn't last as long though for the wizard. So the wizard gets a quick reaction +5. The cleric can cast the spell as an extra action, the bonus action, get a +2 bonus for their AC, and they can do it for 10 minutes as long as they concentrate on it. You can go back and look up concentration, but it basically means they can keep focusing on that spell for 10 minutes. They continuously get that +2, whereas the wizard gets a very temporary +5. And you can only concentrate on one spell at a time. This spell is a concentration spell. So, yes, the cleric has something similar to the wizard, but it works a lot different. The other thing they get as a reaction is Healing Word. They can, if they see someone hurt, as their extra action, and as long they're within 60 feet of you, heal them for 1d4 plus your spellcasting modifier, which in this case, their spellcasting modifier is +3. So they could very quickly, as an extra action, this person's hurt, boop, I heal you for 1d4 +3. So somewhere between 4 to 7 hit points. Not bad. And of course, it casts a spell slot, all that kind of stuff. So definitely some different things here. So for the wizard and the cleric and now the ranger, when they pick their spells, when you're looking at spells to pick, you can think about what you might want, right? If I look at the cleric, let's just look at. So here's all the first level spells, right? So some are always prepared, some you'll get an extra one. You might get some stuff here you want to look at, right? You notice you have some other reactions, some other concentration spells that you might want. Maybe, maybe not. Um, bless. You already have bless. It's always prepared. You just have to read them and see. Some of these might be reactions. Some of them might be bonuses. Most are probably actions, right? You could do sanctuary, which is also a bonus action, which basically means you could protect someone with sanctuary, and then a creature trying to attack them, has to make a saving throw or do something, not attack that person. So it's kind of a way of protecting someone, right? Um, if the creature you're protecting casts a spell or deals damage, then the spell ends. So maybe someone's low on hit points, they got 2 hit points left. Some person's trying to attack them. The cleric could go boop, cast a bonus action, and protect that person. So something to keep in mind as roles is talking about this a little bit. This cleric is a pretty tough cleric. She has 18 armor class. They get some hit points. What's a role of a cleric if you really get down to it? What does a cleric do well? They can be on the front line. They're not necessarily front as good as a front line. Well, it depends how you look at it, right? Um, the cleric is a support character in a sense, right? They can buff the group, right? Their damage that they deal with their sword and so forth is not good as some other characters, right? The cleric strength is the fact that this one has a higher armor class. If they get hurt, the cleric can heal themselves. So if you're trying to be the tank for the group, basically meaning you're taking the damage, right? You're gonna everyone attack me, attack me. I got the highest. I'm the hardest one to hit. And if you hit me on my turn instead of doing damage, I could just heal myself and or heal someone else. Or the cleric has spells to make it easier for the entire group to hit things easier. You can give bonuses to hit with your bless spell, for example, right? Or there might be other things that gives your characters abilities. The cleric's real strength is by buffing the entire group to make them perform better than they normally would. In addition, they can take some damage because they tend to have higher armor and more hit points, right? And they can heal themselves, like I said, which is different than the wizard, which is in this group. The wizard is kind of a glass cannon. Once they get higher up, as they get higher up, they have spells that can do incredible things on the battlefield. They have spells that can do more damage. They have spells that can really change the dynamic of what's going on, right? They can greatly affect what's going on in the battle. But their armor class sucks and they only have a few hit points. So they can do cooler things, but they pay for it if somebody really attacks them because they don't got much defense off the top. Now, the wizards do have spells which give them defense, but you have to blow your spell slots to give them, right? They have spells like, mage armor, which is an easy one, or they have mirror image, invisibility. They can do things to get away, but they got to burn their spells that can affect the battlefield to do that, right? So that's the trade off between a cleric type and a wizard type. Um, the ranger of the group, I have to see what spells they get. Historically, rangers tend to have spells that are very cleric like in nature, right? Or druid like in some cases too, right? But you'll see here some of these spells: animal friendship, cure wounds. That's a cleric spell. More than a wizard spell. Wizards don't cure wounds. Um, the spells that you will get for um, for a ranger are more cleric like. Um, but I'm just kind of looking through them because I haven't done ranger in a long time. There's some spells here which you can see there's quite a list, right? So there's some good spells that you could take, right? Cure wounds is always a good one. Never hurts to have another healer. You can think about some of these other ones. Um, go through it. You'll find that the ranger spells are not as potent as a cleric. They might have similar spells to clerics and druids, right? And that's kind of what you're going to see. But maybe not as whatever, right? Snare could be a cool one, right? Where you can encircle someone and try and restrain them, right? Not a bad spell. Not a bad little spell. Bark skin, right? You can touch someone and the target's AC can't be less than 16, regardless of armor. So you can up someone's armor class with that, right? Um, and that's a concentration spell. Interesting. So, dark vision to see in the night. So yeah, there's things you can do with this. Pass without a trace to sneak around. Flaming arrow is more of a damage spell. You'd have to go and read them all, or read them all. Yeah, it's easy to say, but there's probably videos out there which talks about good ranger spells and stuff like that. Stone skin, not a bad thing. You could see some of these are actions, some of them are bonus actions. Um, just some things to think about, right? All right. Um, I think that's all I wanted to talk about. I'm already about almost 40 minutes in. I should probably try to end this. But I think that was a good discussion. So you can work on leveling up your character. That will give you a few new things to look at. We can talk about that on Friday when you come in, what problems you had, and we can go through them real quick before we start up. Um, And you got a bit of an idea of what else your character can do besides attack and run around. There's some specialty rules that you'll see from time to time. And that's it. So, all right, it's late. So I think I'm going to call it here and talk to y'all soon. Laters.